Kai Lenny slams government response to the Maui recovery.
Here on Maui, supplies are pouring in, and the challenge is now getting those supplies to the people who need them. Kai Lenny is a daring big wave professional surfer and a Maui native, and he says he's been forced to lead a citizen-run recovery effort, one of many on the island, because the government's response, by contrast, has been inadequate. People in the fire zone telling him they haven't seen a government employee in days.
At one moment, you're in beautiful Hawaii, and, it's just another great day. And then the next, this amazing tragedy occurs, and it's so violent. I don't know what to do. I haven't prepared for an entire town going up in flames.
So what kind of needs were you hearing about in the days after the fire?
For some of us, we were kind of sitting back waiting for help to arrive, and then nothing was sort of happening. We were just in shock.
But what was that tipping point for you when you realized government is not going to be able to respond the way locals can?
It's when I started getting texts and messages from friends on the other side saying, hey, no one is here. Do you know anyone you can call? Can you help us? And it started off with really being boots on the ground. Okay, let's get the jet skis. Let's get the boats. Let's call friends who fly commercial aircraft and see if we can charter a plane. We just took it upon ourselves like, okay, we could probably do a full day to hold our friends and family over before the, caravan arrives with everything. And it was just like day after day. Where are they? I haven't seen, one state, one county, one federal official at any one of the donation hubs where people are most suffering. People are sleeping in their cars. People are asking for specific items now.
What does it look like if these places that are hard to get to for the public and you've been able to get to, the distribution centers, what are they like?
It's pretty remarkable seeing communities come together. I mean, these distribution centers, some of them are very chaotic because they're bringing in supplies from the ocean. There's also some very well-organized areas, and you could tell everyone's trying to accomplish the same thing.
So the federal government says they're here. FEMA says they're here. Small Business Administration, the National Guard. There's been a response from Maui County, from the governor. It's very hard for anyone sitting where I'm sitting as a journalist to evaluate the response because it's closed to the public in Lahaina.
As soon as you go to the west side, all of a sudden you're like, wow, why do I feel like I'm in a third world country right now? You could go to any one of those hubs on the west side of the island and you can ask everyone there. And they'll be like, oh, we haven't seen anyone. No one came to talk to us. No one's come to assist. I wonder if the state, county, they believe we're doing such a good job, they don't need to step in. But a lot of these volunteers have been going all day, all night for 5-6 days now and are exhausted and are waiting for a handoff or at least a break. The Hawaiian people, the locals that have lived here, they just always feel like they're the last to be thought of. And they're like the foundation of it.
What's more intimidating, surfing some of the big winter breaks right out here or standing up to your government and asking for a better response?
My job with riding giant
What kind of fucking, question is that? What?
waves has always been to pass through the veil of fear, understand the unknown on the other side. And so I'm very used to putting myself in some heavy situations that, could potentially kill you with riding big waves. I'm always going to speak the truth and what's right, and I'm going to always go off facts.
Look how much.
Kai Lenny there with a particularly difficult challenge in his life. He's taking this week off from professional surfing. Now, we should point out he's speaking his truth. The federal, local, and state government, they have their own truth. FEMA says they've got 300 employees here on the ground. Red Cross.
300? 300 FEMA employees could run a, sandbag, MRE, clothing drive-through. Right? 300 FEMA employees to give you, a sense of, what that looks like. During, massive hurricanes and, where, my area is affected, we'll have, it's a big, expo center. Where rodeos and stuff happen. And you'll have 300 FEMA employees there with National Guard people set up where cars can drive through and get bottled water and MREs and medical supplies, sleeping bags, donated canned goods, socks, t-shirts and stuff like that. right? Maybe even like set up like a housing area with cots for people who like lost their homes. Like 300 FEMA employees could do that for like a small town. This is a massive, large scale. We're talking about like thousands of people out of their homes. 300 FEMA employees ain't shit. The FEMA website says they sent 5,800 total for Katrina. Oh, just wait. We're going to talk about Katrina.
Back to their
shit-ass bitch newsman said FEMA is speaking their own truth. Yeah.
Homes to check on their things. And now you've got lingering word.
We hear you, people of Maui. We see you, we hear you, and we feel for you. And we hear your truth. But also, we need to consider the government's truth.
About looting. The longer that area is closed off, the more it is isolated. The more people don't know. They're worried about their stuff. And then on top of all of that, you've got this long list of the missing as well.
Listen, I didn't even think about looting, Tony, until you mentioned it.
Oh, God, fucking media. Oh, looting. Hey, man. Hey, you know how you fix that? Shelter. People are looting because there's no government response. So we keep bringing up Katrina to kind of contrast what the response from the Biden administration looks like. I know Fox News had a headline. Here it is.
President Biden finally speaking publicly about the Maui wildfires after telling reporters no comment earlier this week. But some are pointing out that he seemed to forget the name of the island.
I apologize because I try very hard to keep my speeches between 15 and 18 minutes. But I got to talk a little bit about Hawaii. The Army helicopters help fire suppression and efforts on the Big Island because there's still some burning on the Big Island, not the one where you see on television all the time.
Fox News contributor and columnist for The Messenger, Joe Concha, joins us now. Joe, look, I know we've been talking about Joe Biden's decline on this show for months now, but even then, are you still shocked? He's missed so many layups on a story that requires just a few simple lines of empathy. We pray for these people. We hope that they get what they need, and we're going to provide the...
Listen, the important thing about this, I'm not even going to pay attention to like the whole thing. This is Joe Biden's Katrina, right? The mourner-in-chief that is Joe Biden. This is his Katrina. But the thing is, Joe Biden has had multiple Katrinas. They said the same thing when East Palestine was literally like, you know, had like the devil's anus in the sky above it, right? You all remember the black sky above, you all remember the devil's anus above them? This fucking thing? Yeah, how can you not forget? Joe Biden has had a lot of Katrinas. But when we talk about the actual response to Maui, to the wildfires in Lahaina, we need to keep in perspective what is happening when we say it's literally like Katrina. Investors are calling Maui wildfire victims to buy their Hawaiian land. Victims of the Maui wildfires are reportedly being contacted by investors and realtors attempting to buy their land in Hawaii amid the disaster that has destroyed parts of their island. In an Instagram video posted Sunday, Kako'o Hale'ekala, an organization focused on preserving lands and native species in Hawaii, warned Maui residents of the calls by investors and realtors. Claims made on social media come as the wildfires on the Hawaiian island continue to rage, resulting in massive evacuations, injuries to residents, and damaged homes and other buildings. Officials in Maui County said in an update on Sunday night that the Maui Police Department had confirmed that 96 fatalities across the island. It's going to be more than that as we stack up the days. Quote, I am so frustrated with investors and realtors calling families who lost their homes offering to buy their land. How dare you do that to our community right now? If you are a victim and they are calling you, please get their name, get their business name so we can put them on blast. The person speaking to the Kako'o Hale'ekala's video said. Let's see. It's so frustrating hearing since yesterday multiple families that I know personally were reached out to and offered money from investors and realtors. They continued, shame on you. If you are a Maui realtor contributing to that, karma's going to come and get you. It is unclear which investors and realtors were attempting to call Maui residents to purchase their land. Newsweek reached out to the organization via email for comment. The video posted was on their Instagram. I think we actually took a look at it. Now, this is the biggest comparison you can make to Katrina. Not just that the response is slow, and when they, when help does arrive, it's inadequate, it's insufficient, it's unfocused, it's disorganized. It took weeks for FEMA to get to New Orleans. But direct comparisons, an article from 2006, the New York Times. Investors lead home sale boom in New Orleans. July 8th, in a market spurred by speculators and bargain hunters, an extraordinarily large number of houses in the flood-ravaged metropolitan area here are being sold, according to real estate analysis, who say volume and sales prices exceed levels before Hurricane Katrina. The higher prices are largely due to the increase in value of suburban areas, many of which are not heavily flooded or in dry areas of New Orleans, but flooded houses in the city are being bought as well, often at deep discounts as much as $50 a square foot, less than they would have been sold for before the hurricane. This same thing happened in New Orleans, and it's happening in Maui right now. I talked the other day about Airbnbs being rented out at discounts to Maui residents being paid for by the local government. That's good that the government is paying those prices, right? Paying it forward for them at no cost to the residents. They should eminent domain them, though. There's no reason that they should stay within the private sector in the hands of landlords owning these cheap Airbnbs that probably don't even live on the island. We just went over in the Philip DeFranco video about how real estate companies operating through LLCs and shells don't even see their tenants, have never even stepped foot on the property, or you don't even know who owns your home, who your real landlord is. It's the same thing. There's no reason that they should be on the island first and foremost, but that after this tragedy, they should go back to, buying up more properties, renting them out through Airbnbs. No, that should belong to the Lahaina people. Again, same shit happened in Puerto Rico. There's a popular clip of some real estate demon talking about how good the hurricane was for them. There's so many opportunities for them now. Boricua for life. If you could find that video, I want to take a look at that. Hawaii has a common practice of doing leasehold agreements for the land, typically on a 99-year lease that becomes up for renewal eventually. This shit should just be illegal? Yeah, it should be illegal. The same exact thing happened in New Orleans. And as we talked about with the Chicago mayoral race a few months back, the same guy, Bassel, I think was his name, who was running for mayor of Chicago, ran the recovery effort for the schools in New Orleans. There are no public schools in New Orleans now. It's all private and charter schools. Yeah, Paul Dickhead Vallis, that's his name. USS Wayne Meyer is a destroyer class, but it could 100% be used to bring supplies and get people to safety. 100% it could. Every branch of the government is on the main island of Hawaii and could have been in Maui that same day, within hours. It's difficult to imagine what it's going to look like in Lahaina after everything is cleaned up and the rebuilding begins. But if it's anything like Puerto Rico or New Orleans, you're going to see private investors move in and try and buy people out of their homes, because it's not going to be quick. It's not going to be an immediate, within the year, people are going to be back in their neighborhoods. No. There are still parts of the 9th Ward that still have the X's over their doors, with X's on their doors that markate if there were bodies, if there was anybody found inside. There are still homes in New Orleans marked like this. X markers all the way from Katrina in the 9th Ward, blue tarps all over New Orleans, east and the lower 9th, etc., all to this day. Yeah, we're talking about 18 years ago. And it still looks like this. The body's still inside? No, it's just that the homes are not rebuilt. The neighborhoods were not renovated after Katrina. The recovery just didn't happen, right? This whole area, still homes damaged. And it's because these are low-income poor neighborhoods that this shit's able to continue. The rush for a slice of paradise in Puerto Rico. Many Puerto Ricans say they no longer can afford to stay in their homes with outside investors buying up properties and driving up prices. This, what we're looking at, is called disaster capitalism. This is the shock doctrine. The last time strangers approached Samuel Sanchez Tirado while he was trimming his front lawn, he pretended to be a landscaper so that they would leave him alone. He knew what the uninvited visitors wanted, and he was tired of having the same conversation over and over again. Mr. Sanchez lives in Rincon, a seaside town in northwestern Puerto Rico, famous for surfing and sunsets that has become a hotspot for wealthy investors looking for tax breaks. The visitors, like so many before them, were interested in buying his one-story home, which is a 2-minute walk from the beach. It's not for sale, but that has not stopped the unsolicited offers from coming. Quote, "They don't ask you for a price," he said. "They just hand you a check, tell you to fill it out with whatever you think the house is worth." There's a boom. There are boom times for investors flocking to idyllic towns all over Puerto Rico, some of them seeking to take advantage of tax incentives intended to attract new people and outside money to the cash-strapped island, which is working its way out of bankruptcy. The tax breaks appeal accelerated. The tax breaks appeal accelerated after the coronavirus pandemic prompted many companies to shift to remote work, inspiring Americans who live on the mainland to move to more temperate climates. Not just people doing remote work.
With the New York Times noting while there are new settlers beyond just those who want tax breaks, it is the finance and tech investors who have formally applied for tax break status who have drawn the most attention, with the island specifically attracting many cryptocurrency traders but also other prominent names as well. And of course, among those, last February you had Logan Paul announcing on his podcast that he was moving from Los Angeles to Puerto Rico. And while he claimed there that the tax breaks weren't his primary reason, he did cite them as one of the reasons.
It's getting crazy here in California, paying taxes. Everybody is leaving. And for what? Because the potholes in the streets are not fixed.
Homeless people.
Homeless people everywhere. A dearth of employment. COVID not handled the right. Like, I don't know. It just I don't love it.
And so with that, many people, including many locals, see Logan Paul moving to the island and buying a massive $13 million mansion as part of the big problem.
It's not just real estate developers moving in to buy those properties. It's also super wealthy people. And where is Logan Paul whenever a hurricane comes to town? He certainly ain't on the island. This is not just gentrification. There is a specific term for this, and it's called disaster capitalism.
First of all, I don't think it is conspiratorial. I think it's a basic principle of journalism to follow the money. And we have conflict of interest rules precisely because people are human, and when you can benefit personally, economically, from policies that you are advancing, then those policies are called into question, and the questions are raised. So that's why we have this legal architecture to prevent obvious conflicts of interest. And the Bush administration, key figures in the Bush administration have just shown enormous defiance in the face of those rules and really twisted the White House lawyers up in knots trying to rationalize holding on to these stocks. But to me, it's a broader question about the economy, what I call the disaster capitalism complex, and the fact that I don't believe, I think that there's a particular way of thinking that comes with being in the business of disaster, and I'm not talking about just any old economic holdings, right? I'm talking about those particular economic holdings that increase, whose fortunes increase when things go bad, right? So oil and gas, the bad things happen, the price of oil goes up. This we know, right? Whether it is a hurricane, whether it's a war, whether it's a fear of a war, whether it's Chavez and Ahmadinejad hugging, whatever it is, bad, price of oil goes up, right? And the same is true for defense stocks, the same is true of homeland security stocks, the same is true for drug companies that are in the business of pandemics. So this is how.
Also, you can take a look at the 2008 financial crisis, housing market collapse. When you socialize the losses and you privatize the gains, that is another tentacle of disaster capitalism. You are profiting off of the devastation of an entire class of people, the working class. Because it's not the working class that saw the benefits of that, it was the owner class. The system is built to benefit one group of people, those who own, those who have. There's a constant misconception that like capitalist realists have of the expression of haves and have-nots. It's not people who have done things, who have, achieved greatness in their lives, and those who have not achieved anything or have not worked hard. It's those who have, who own, and those who have not the means to be able to survive. That's what it is. So when some capitalist realists on their Sigma grind set entrepreneurs like, nah, dog, they're just haves and have-nots. They're a have-not. They got no capital. Show me the deed to the factory.
How I'm defining broadly the disaster capitalism complex.
Dumb question, but I think but since you've lived, Katrina, does the community ever get better? I don't know how to ask it, but does the community ever get back up? No. There are parts that will, move to different areas, and they'll be able to, rebuild their lives, and they'll be okay. But for the most part, no one, even those who are able to, get back on their feet, no one gets better. Because there's always that chance that it could happen again. Right? 2021, massive hurricane blew through the lower east part of Louisiana, capital area as well. 900,000 people out of power. Even more out of internet, telecommunications, phone, cable, not able to know what's going on. Meanwhile, we're in the midst of the pandemic. It's the height. It's 2021. More people were dying of COVID at that time than in 2020. Meanwhile, what is Entergy doing? Increasing the costs on their customers because they have to rebuild. They're not increasing the prices because they're, improving the infrastructure. They're not increase the prices because they're shielding the lines from, damage that might come. No, they're still operating off of fucking wooden poles that snap every time a hurricane comes through. Random, but 900,000 actually sounds like so much more than 1 million. I also live in a flood area, and yeah, it's never the same again after a disaster. Yeah, and you will always have that in the back of your mind, because it's seasonal, that this year might be it. Are they future-proofing it? Nope. Especially in the lower income areas where, there's no investment. You're certainly not, your taxes aren't going to improve the area. There's no shielding your infrastructure. Main Street in my small town flooded a decade ago and still never recovered. Yeah. I drive through my hometown sometimes, and I still see homes damaged from the flood in 2016. When I went to go to my little cousin's band camp performance, I drove through my hometown. I went to the high school that I went to for it because she's going there. And going down that main road where the high school is, there's still homes with just big holes in their roof from where trees fell through. There's no one living there anymore. And no real estate investors are coming to buy up those properties because there's nothing in that town. Why would real estate investors buy up property there? Our hometown is a flood area and got fucked in Sandy, supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime storm. Yeah, they always say it's once in a lifetime, once every 500 years.
Which is bigger than the military-industrial complex. The reason why Eisenhower gave that famous warning in his last presidential address about the danger of the military-industrial complex is precisely because this is an industry that has an economic incentive for war and instability. So I think that there is something really significant that we need to talk about that the Bush administration, the people who've been running the government in Washington, but also the occupation of Iraq, are card-carrying members of the disaster capitalism complex. I realize, I don't think it sounds conspiratorial. I think it sounds obvious, right? I'm in fact embarrassed to be pointing this out because it's such an...
It's no wonder they tear up at the national anthem and sing at the top of their lungs. That's all they got at this point. Yeah, all they have is that's their God now. Their God is, the patriotism of old. Their God is capitalism. Their God is, the American dream.
Obvious point, but it amazes me that people don't talk about it all the time. That Dick Cheney was in the business of privatizing the U.S. military before he went into office. That Donald Rumsfeld was in the business of profiting from pandemics before he went into office. That Bush was in the oil and gas business before he came into office. That his father was connected to the Carlyle Group, which is a major weapons dealer. That Paul Bremer, the chief envoy in Iraq who laid the economic framework for the occupation, that 1 month after September 11th, he launched a Homeland Security company to advise other corporations on how they could protect themselves in this new era. That Rudy Giuliani did the same thing 3 months later. So these are all people who see profit directly from terrorism, natural disasters, and pandemics. What is their economic incentive to get us off this disastrous course? I mean, we need political leaders who think disasters are bad. That to me is a good starting premise.
Yeah. And right now, we just don't have that with Joe Biden. So I wanted to talk about this today to kind of give everybody like a perspective on this is not new. When you see people saying, oh, we were offered $700 for our property. Real estate investors are coming in to buy up homes. That's not new. That's not unique. That is exactly the same story we hear every time. It is disaster capitalism, and, it's going to continue until leadership says no more. Until leadership makes it illegal to profit off of the, ecological disasters that happen in these areas.